would go at it for you,
Okay.
answer it from the standpoint of why you were interested in this
Okay.
as a
All right.
project.
Okay. All right. All right.
Just talk to me. Yeah.
So my interest in the project, I feel like it was an opportunity. First and foremost, the ability to produce a art piece that incorporates photography. That was one aspect why I was interested in this. But of course that became a challenge because how do you photograph the eclipse when the eclipse only happens occasionally? And so I knew I needed to pivot and think, how can I best represent the eclipse? So this tied into my interest in other media such as sculpture. And prior to taking on this project, I was at that time investing a lot of time and energy researching Native American iconography. So I felt that this would be a perfect opportunity to bring presence to Native American history in this region, and also Native American iconography, mythologies, and stories related to the eclipse. I feel like Native American culture is still underrepresented. So I've found this as a wonderful opportunity to represent them in a way that would, one, educate, and also begin to educate the public, but also get the public more interested in their history in the region. Case in point would be the Shawnee and the Kaskaskia tribes, two prominent tribes. The Shawnee being predominantly in the Indiana, Ohio River side of southern Illinois, and the Kaskaskia on the west. I mean, there's obviously more tribes historically that have inhabited and migrated across this region, but I chose those two. Anyone that has visited the exhibit, they become, the way I present them, they're like guardians. One of the Shawnee, I believe, has the 2017 eclipse map underneath its feet, and the Kaskaskia has the 2024. So although this installation is about the eclipse, the science of the eclipse and sun and moon, I found this as a wonderful opportunity to weave in the stories, predominantly Native American stories.
So, two things. If it's possible, your eyes kind of go all over the place. If you could sort of talk to me.
Sure.
It just
Yeah.
looks funny sometimes.
Just like that camera.
I know it's hard
Yeah.
if you're thinking, but so what specifically did you find that the Native Americans did in relation to eclipses they experienced?
Right, so there's a variety of stories. In this exhibit, there are, I believe, 8 Native American references, 4 of which have small sculptural forms related to mythologies, related to animals devouring the sun, with the jaguar referencing the Mexica, also known as the Azteca tribe in Mexico. And then there is the Cherokee. They have a story of a frog swallowing the sun. And there's the bear of the Pomo Native American tribe, which would be kind of in the northern region of California, what is now California. Then there is the Choctaw, has the story of a black squirrel swallowing the sun. So those are the 4 stories related to the animals devouring the sun. Then there are 2 references. In the exhibit, there's a wall with some arrows pointing upwards to a laser engraved depiction of the solar eclipse. the arrows are in reference to the Ojibwe culture, the story of the Ojibwe tribe shooting flaming arrows at the sun with hopes that it would reignite the sun. And then
Can you start that again?
Mhm.
That's such a really good thing. So
Mhm.
that story with the arrows
Mhm.
shooting.
You want me to restate?
Just that, recite that.
Right.
Restate that thing with the arrows.
So then there's the Ojibwe tribe, which would kind of in the Great Lakes region. The story is about the tribe's people shooting flaming arrows at the sun, or the darkened sun, or aka the moon, with the idea and promise that one of the arrows would strike the sun and reignite. Then on the outside of the exhibit there is a mural, very stylized, abstract, and that's actually referencing the Great Lakota Winter Count, 19th century buffalo hide with paintings that depict pivotal moments or events. And on that hide there's a painting with a black circle with two what looks like stars on the upper right of the black circle. And anthropologists, archaeologists believe that's the Lakota depiction of when they had witnessed an eclipse in their region. So that image, that painting, is depicted in that mural. If you look at the mural, there's obviously what looks like the eclipse, then there's actually two stars referencing the same two stars that was painted on the buffalo hide. So that would be Sioux/West Lakota tribe reference. Then the last two Native American references, as I mentioned earlier, are the Kaskaskia and the Shawnee. The Shawnee has a story related to the prediction of the eclipse. The Great American Spirit's hand blocking the sun as a prophetic story. But I decided to make use of a French painter, Colette. He's a French painter during colonial times, painted a representation of both of the Kaskaskia and Shawnee. So he had painted both tribes people, and so I used his painting as a reference for the illustration that are on the two illuminated walls. So in total there are 8 Native American representations within this exhibit.
Wow. So let's see if we can jump centuries forward. And you've also worked a lot with Bob Baer and the science of all this. And then this event is going to pass very soon. Probably this video will not be out till after the eclipse. So what do you think the legacy of this is, say, connecting the Native American mythology around it, or symbolism, and then the science and the current research around the whole event?
Right. So with Bob Baer being the scientist partner of this project, he definitely helped advise me on, well, one, pointing me to resources and topics and stories related to the eclipse, specifically the corona. And there's just so much. There's so much science behind one, not just the sun, but also the moon. So it just, even though we had like a year and maybe a few months to develop the idea and to actually build the project, it still didn't seem like it was enough time. So my focus was on hydrogen and the corona. So in this exhibit there is pink. That's a predominant color, and that pink is in reference to the actual color of hydrogen. That's its signature. So from the mural that's painted on the wall with the strands of lines. That's a reference to the prominences. The prominence is the high temperature, high magnetic energy structures that project out from the corona. So that's a common motif in this exhibit, and you actually even see it in Kevin Moorfield's photograph, which Kevin Moorfield played a important but yet silent part in this project. We were able to have access to his image. He's a professional astrophotographer, and Bob Baer knew him personally. So when we explained what our intentions are and how pivotal that his image would play in this exhibit, he was on board and allowed myself to manipulate his image to create some visual effects, to generate a style that's that moves beyond just kind of like the scientific photograph, astrophotography, which allowed me to explore a sculptural rendition of his image to exaggerate the pink color, but also to create an idea of waves of energy, which, with all the articles that I've read about the sun and the eclipse and what the scientific community is doing, all of that led to that centerpiece. Even from the surface treatment of the pedestal, that was intentional. There's wave-like, snake-like patterns, which is in reference to the shadow bands, the snake banding that occurs during the contact of the moon with the sun, and also the exit. So the goal with this project falls in line with Simon's Foundation. Simon's Foundation definitely, their hope is to invite the public to begin to understand the value of science, and also appreciate how art can serve as a mode to introduce very complex scientific inquiry to the general public, to hopefully the younger generation will feel a sense of curiosity and interest, because who knows, there may be a young scientist that may see this exhibit and become fascinated with aspects. I think that's the investment that this installation has. Like, we may not see the full ramifications of where science and art with this installation until maybe 20 years. There may have been like a young adolescent that saw this, and maybe it sticks in their mind, and maybe that's why they're wanting to join an astronomy club or learn more about the moon and the stars. Or there may be a young person that wants to explore and learn more about Native American culture, because that's definitely part of the fabric of humanity. So that's thinking about the past, and also thinking about the future, like what art and science can bring. A lot of times when I speak about this project, I talk about there's two powerful forces. There's the science and story. Those two really shape humanity and civilization. So they both have equal power in, well, one, understanding who we are, but also where we came from, and also where we're going. So I'm not sure if that answers like the question. If you wanted me to speak more directly to
while we have Carolyn here, maybe, so this importance that may not appear, as you said, until 20 years later for certain people, maybe you can relate that to where this exhibit could potentially live and why it should live beyond when it gets taken down from here.
Right. I think given that this region has a rich history from, there were cultures that existed prior to modern, well, there are pre-colonial cultures existing here. I think they're vital and important to to the history of Carbondale or the history of Southern Illinois, and I think it's justifiable to represent or give them a place of presence. They're equally important as your 20th century heroes or statespersons. Having Native Americans visible to the public, it keeps their history, their presence current, and it sends a message that this culture is a dominant aspect of the region. I'm not sure if that answers the question, or if you want me to rephrase.
There's some additional elements, and Chuck and Marcia can potentially speak to those. The importance of finding how, if arts are going to become